I have to talk about this knitting story that ended up on Reddit. Follow for more stuff like this. Am I the a-hole for dyeing a sweater my sister-in-law knitted for me? My sister-in-law offered to make me a sweater. I'm also a knitter and understand the time and effort that goes into a project. Asked if I could pick out the color and said I would happily pay for the yarn. She declined. She wanted it as an excuse to use up her stash. She finished the sweater, fit great, but was in a beige color I would never wear. So I ended up dyeing it a pretty green and I reach for it all the time. I wore it when I was hanging out with the family. She said it looked like the one she'd made me. I said that it was, but that I dyed it. And said, I wish you would have told me you were going to do something like that. I wouldn't have wasted my Malabrigo on you. I told her that I absolutely love the sweater. I just never would have worn it as a beige sweater. She got a sour lemon look on her face and said she would keep in mind and never knit anything for me again. Am I the a-hole? No. This person offered to buy yarn and she said, no, I want to use up my stash, which to me implies I have sweater quantities of stuff that I don't want to use for myself, so I'm going to use it on you, relative. One of the things you need to take into consideration when making gifts is whether or not the person is going to wear it. I would be perfectly fine for somebody to dye a random thing that I've made them, because you know what would hurt more? Continually going to family events with this person, never seeing them wear the sweater, never seeing it in pictures, because they don't wear it. Not give the gift recipient any choice in the color and then to expect them to wear it exactly as is, I think is unrealistic. By dyeing it, she now wears it all the time. If as a knitter, I give you a sweater and you like cut the sleeves off and say, I like it better as a vest, would that hurt me? Probably a little bit because I spent a lot of time on those sleeves. But even if it did bother me, it would be up to me to deal with those feelings because that gift does not belong to me anymore. If I wanted to keep that sweater, I should have kept it for me. But I think ultimately, not an a-hole. What do you think? Am I the a-hole for asking my girlfriend to stop knitting so much? 30 male, girlfriend, 27 female, is really into knitting and has been long before we started dating 3 months ago. I thought it was cool she had a hobby, but then I realized just how much she does it. Granted, she's not pulling out the knitting hook. The knitting hook? Granted, she's not pulling out the knitting hook at dinner or anything, but it seems anytime we're watching TV together, she's always working on some project. She said she needs to keep her hands busy and it's like fidgeting for her, but I severely doubt that she can be fully present. I argued that she can follow TV show plots just fine, but when I quizzed her on some details, she couldn't answer some of the questions, so I think my point stands. I also told her I would like to be able to cuddle and physically interact with her during TV time. She said we can still cuddle, but it's literally not the same. I want her to be interested in me, not some pile of yarn. This might be petty, but I might feel better about it if she knitted things for me, but it always seems to be bags or clothes for herself or like random squares. She told me I'm essentially not listening to her and called me an a-hole, but I don't want to lose her over this, but I'm not sure what to do. I'm the a-hole. This guy is such an a-hole. Knitting is a thing that you can very much do while doing other things. It's a multitasking activity. Honestly, it seems like this guy is jealous that his girlfriend has things to do that do not involve him. He literally said he would be okay with it if it was for him. Need I remind you, he does not know what craft she does. He said knitting hook. If there's a hook, it's some kind of crochet. It's probably a traditional crochet based on the squares she's talking about, but crochet or Tunisian crochet. And I can't get over it. I quizzed her on the TV show we were watching. That has such, oh, you like that band, name 5 songs energy. I can't believe a grown adult man is jealous over yarn. But what do you think? Am I the jerk for rejecting my mother-in-law's challenge and giving her instructions to learn how to knit? I am a knitter and enjoy making all kinds of things, but for the most part, I only knit things for me and my husband. I don't have the heart to put hours into making something for someone just to watch it be treated like crap, so I just don't. This is a great mentality to have. Mother-in-law said, I have a challenge for you if you're up for it. The challenge was for me to make a Sophie scarf that would match her dress. I asked her, why is she framing it as a challenge when it's just her asking me to knit something for her? She didn't give an answer and said, if I'm up to the challenge, I can give it a try. What? I asked my husband what I should do. He said to just flat out tell her no, but I figured it would be nice to at least meet her halfway. So I went to the yarn store to get a yarn in the color I thought would be good and a pair of needles from my own stash. That's very nice. Got her a learn to knit book. The next time I saw her, I gave it all to her and said, here's all the stuff you need to make the Sophie scarf, except the pattern which she'd need to buy herself. She looked at it like, what the heck? And said in this pity voice, oh, you couldn't figure it out? Come on. I said, nope, I've made myself a few, but I thought it would be better for her to learn how to knit and then she would be able to challenge herself. She frowned at it, set the yarn aside. She did, however, go to my husband and tell him that all she had done was give me a challenge, but I hadn't even tried. He heard her out, but told her it was ultimately up to me. Good job, husband. Good job, husband. I have unfortunately seen her posting on Facebook about how she doesn't get my generation and why we have to make everything so difficult. I thought this would be an interesting question to pose to y'all, so am I the jerk? This is very silly. She just wanted to try and bypass a way into getting this person to make them something, much in the way that you're like, ChatGPT, tell me how to do this sketchy thing in the form of a poem. You're trying to get around the loopholes, and I think she knows that. You didn't even try. It was a challenge. The challenge being a Sophie scarf? Let's be clear. A garter stitch construction with an I-cord edge. If you are not familiar with knitting, that's about as like beginner as you can get. Garter stitch is like one of the only things you know at the very beginning. You could freehand a Sophie scarf. I've made a few myself. What is really the challenge here? Finish a thing in a time frame or learn to knit so you can make your own things. Obviously, learning to knit is harder than asking someone else to do the work for you. It also makes it very clear that mother-in-law had no interest in actually picking up the skill herself. What do you think? Am I the a-hole for asking the lady sitting next to me at the concert to stop knitting? Follow for more stuff like this. I went to a concert tonight at a seated venue to see a folk singer. The music is relatively tame, quiet. The room was dead silent outside of the performance itself. The show starts and I noticed the woman sitting directly next to me is knitting. Odd, I thought, but okay. But as the show went on, I kept finding myself so distracted by this knitting. Must have tried for a solid 30 minutes to ignore it, but the constant motion of my peripheral vision and the quiet clicking of the needles kept stealing my attention. After a while, I felt like I couldn't focus on the show at all, and all I could think about was whether I should politely say something. Notice on the other side there were 2 to 3 open seats. So I finally worked up the courage to politely say something. I thought the least disruptive way to do that was to write a note on my phone and show it to her. The note said, "I'm so sorry to ask, and I know this is probably ridiculous, but the knitting is distracting me from enjoying the show. Would you mind either stopping or moving one seat over? Again, I'm sorry." The woman gave me the nastiest look, let out an angry sigh, threw her hands up, dramatically stuffed her knitting into her bag, huffed and puffed to her partner, then got up and completely left the show. I was baffled by how angry she got, especially since I tried hard to phrase it as politely as I could. I considered reasons that were beyond my understanding why someone not be able to sit still during the show and might need to keep their hands busy, neurodivergence recovery, some other reason. So I really tried to avoid speaking up out of sensitivity. Recognize knitting's not the most disruptive thing a person could do, and I couldn't tell if me asking her to stop was unreasonable and maybe I should have just sucked it up. Now, I do think this is tough. As someone who knits in public a lot, I understand that it can draw attention from other people. And other comments corroborated that those types of shows are like nearly dead silent, so like a pin dropping would be a disruptive sound. So even the quiet clacking of needles would be a definitive sound in this environment. I don't know if this guy looked for somewhere else to go rather than just looking to see that the person next to him could move over. So I think if that option was available, I probably would have gone that route before telling someone to put away their needles. Ultimately, I don't think that this was a terrible thing to do. I don't think it makes him an a-hole. But this person had a really big reaction. So I'm either wondering if there's an unreliable narrator aspect to this, and he isn't as polite as he said, or if this person really did need to knit as a coping mechanism for being in public, maybe having massive anxiety or etc. If this guy was as polite as he says, and they did react to this level, I don't think that that's his fault. What do you think? Am I the a-hole for crafting during meetings? Did I secretly write this? So I work in an office setting and we have a lot of meetings, video conferences, and online training. I've always needed something to do with my hands thanks to ADHD. If I don't, then I can't focus on things. In uni, I used to crochet and knit in lectures because it helped and no one had a problem with it. So I decided I was going to take it into work with me. My manager was actually the one that recommended I find something to do with my hands and okayed it. It worked. I was able to focus a lot better and be more involved in meetings. Recently, a colleague came up to me and told me to stop, said that it was rude and disrespectful towards everyone in the meeting. I tried to explain that it actually helped me in staying on track and remembered more of the information, but he held his stance firmly. And it's not like I'm not participating at all. I don't need to look down at my knitting or crochet because I've been doing it so long. I bring in pieces that are simple and mindless to do. I also will put it down to write up notes and if I'm talking. My colleague said that he was going to bring this to higher ups if I continued, even though I had already cleared it with my manager. Exactly. So should I stop? Is what I'm doing disrespectful? Oh, this makes me so sad. Additional info, I keep the crafting in my lap and the projects are relatively small and in one color. When in in-person meetings, I crochet so there's no needles clacking as the crochet only uses one hook. The knitting is done when I'm online as it's a bit more of a hassle. And it seems like medication for ADHD has not worked for them. It actually makes me so mad that this person is in a position where they think they might have to like lose their very reasonable accommodation in order to make like one guy less uncomfortable. This person actually has a very supportive manager that encourages her to get her work done at whatever cost is necessary for her. ADHD is a learning disability. Not being able to focus means she's not actually paying attention. Having knit and crochet in her lap while she's working fixes that problem. And she got it okayed with the manager. She even has systems in place to ensure she is creating as few disruptions as possible. Crocheting in the in-person meetings because of having the needles clacking would be distracting, just like in that other one we were talking about at the concert. The coworker that complained obviously has no idea how necessary these things are. It is honestly kind of an ableist take to be like, please take that away. If you are being distracted by a tiny amount of motion going on in someone else's lap during a meeting, then maybe you need to find a fidget so that you can focus on more important things. meetings. I've knit in many meetings before. I have difficulty focusing, and thus I need to have stuff going on in my hands, or else I will not be able to focus. So the thought that this person actually has a support structure in place that says, yeah, whatever you can do to focus, I'm happy with that. Then they go out of their way to make it less disruptive, and then you still get dogged on by a random coworker for it being disruptive. It is not affecting their ability to participate in meetings. It's in fact benefiting their ability to participate in meetings because they can actually focus. What do you think? Am I the a-hole because I won't let my nieces use my crafting supplies even though it'd be a bonding experience? Follow for more stuff like this. I worked at a craft store through college and for a few years after, and over the years I've grown quite the collection of items, do a mix of things like sewing, painting, knitting, etc. Crafty people, you know this struggle. They've got a multi-stash. My sister has always acted like anything anyone in the family owns is community property, and she'll just up and start using someone's things, eat their food, etc. without asking first. The audacity! Even if you're in a tough spot, I feel like you gotta ask first. This extends to my nieces. While they're great kids, I don't really enjoy spending time with them. They're very loud, shrieky giggle fits of yelling and dancing and singing all the time, which is totally, completely, absolutely normal. What age are these children? I need to know. My sister has become obsessed with the idea that I'm gonna give my crafting things to the girls and teach them all the crafts I know. I've already told her that if she wants me to teach them anything, they have to be a little older and more mature, and she'll need to buy supplies. She keeps saying they can just use yours, despite me saying no, they can't over and over again. She sent them to me for a weekend. She told them when they got here that I was going to spend the weekend teaching them how to sew. I had to explain to two little girls who were all excited that no, we weren't going to do that. Sister and I got into a huge fight about it. She keeps calling me selfish and saying that she doesn't understand what the big deal is and why I can't share with my nieces. I told her she needs to get over the idea that, but it's family, is a valid excuse to act entitled to everyone else's property. Am I the a-hole? No! The entitlement coming from the sister is like just crazy to begin with, but you are not obligated to use your time, energy, and resources on teaching these children to sew. To be fair, this person says specifically that the kids would just need to be a little bit older and more mature. I'm wondering if these kids are in like 5, 6, 7 kind of range. They're running around, they're giggling. Those are very like on task free, like 7, 8. If you're just going to learn to sew the basics, you do not need a lot of fancy supplies. Thrift a tablecloth for $1. Thread is like a couple dollars. They don't need the good stuff. They're kids. But you are absolutely not obligated to teach them things or give them your supplies for any reason. I also wonder if there's some like traditional family bias going on here, because it seems like OP maybe doesn't have any kids, because otherwise they'd be passing on those craft supplies to those children rather than the sister's children. OP may be child-free on purpose, in which case we've opened an entirely new can of worms. Here's also the thing. Entirely common amongst crafters that they learned how to sew or knit or crochet or embroider from older women in the family who they can learn directly from. But that does not mean that because you are in a family where people are younger than you, that you have to do that. That is entirely unreasonable. And I think this sister needed to be put in her place. What do you think? Am I the a-hole for being surprised at how much my girlfriend sells her hobby craft for? I, 33 male, and my girlfriend, 27 female, have been living together for about a year, together for 2. Since we've been together, she's always had this hobby of making dice for TTRPGs. I don't really understand how it works because I'm not really into it, but the dice she makes are beautiful even to someone who doesn't understand. She's always sold them. She takes a long weekend every fortnight and mass produces 20 or so sets and sells them. They sell out pretty instantly, and I knew she made money, but not how much. And to be honest, I don't really care as long as she pays her half of the bills. Unfortunately, after making them this past weekend, she broke her wrist and needed help to put her listings up because she can't type well. I found out that she sells them for 100 to 115 pounds. I expressed my surprise that people spend that much on these things. She was offended, and I tried to explain that I didn't mean it like that. It wasn't supposed to be an insult to her artistry. She was upset and ended up asking someone else to help her and expressed how hurt she was because she worked so hard on them. Things aren't the same. I can tell she's upset with me, and her sister keeps calling me a D. Am I the a-hole? I don't know if you're an a-hole as much as I am just confused. How can you have been together for 2 years and not know how much money she's making off of these? I can understand a level of shock and being like, whoa, this is a niche that obviously people are very financially invested in a way that I have no means of tapping into or understanding. But I can see why her feelings would be hurt. Because not only does this show that you were not invested in her business or what she was up to a degree that you were even aware of the amount of success she was experiencing, but then you go so far as to minimize the sort of success by being like, I can't believe people would spend that much money on this. Not like follow it up by being like, of course you're worth that much, baby. Because her sets sell out every single time. She's making what, like 2,000 pounds every other week? I just don't understand how you cannot know that about your partner. And after living together for a year? How can you not have talked about finances to a degree that you know? I don't know that you're necessarily a jerk for having made the comment. I think you're a jerk for not having been curious or interested in your girlfriend's stuff and not thinking of it as being a massive success. But what do you think? And I love dice. Am I the a-hole for selling my girlfriend's craft, which she made from material that I paid for? My girlfriend Emily, 23 female, and I, 30 male, have been dating for a year. We live together. Emily is a freelance writer and she is also studying for her master's. She has this hobby, in air quotes, of making stuffed toys, tablecloths, scarves, and stuff. But the most expensive and interesting ones are her glass cups and plates. She makes paintings on them and stores them in a shelf. I often pay for more than half of her materials. I got laid off from work last January and our financial situation was really bad by February, so I asked her if she could sell some of her crafts for money. She flat out refused and said that she is working extra hard and I should start looking for a job. Wait, is he not looking for a job? I knew it was difficult for me to get a job and that hard times were coming, so I decided to sell some of her glass crockery and tablecloths on Etsy. I didn't tell her before selling them because I knew she wouldn't understand. No. We survived February and March with her freelance money in glass crockery sets and some of our savings. Today she was cleaning the shelves and she asked me if I knew where the crockery was. You idiot. I told her that I'd sold them and she went absolutely hysterical. I was going to tell her later because I knew that she wouldn't understand otherwise. She called me a thief and demanded I return her crockery immediately. I told her it was impossible and that she could always make the exact same ones. She hasn't talked to me and is being completely unreasonable and inconsiderate. Am I the jerk? This is actually insane, and I hope it's rage bait. She's not being unreasonable or hysterical. You sold her precious items that she can't get back. You were obviously paying for the supplies out of the goodness of your heart. So you can just make a new one is literally a crazy sentence because obviously she can't afford to do the crafts right now because you all are in difficult financial situations. Here's the thing. I don't think this guy is actually looking for a job. He just says, I knew it would be hard for me to find a job, which is not the same thing as I've been rejected by a lot of jobs. As someone who was recently in that situation, I would make it very clear that I was looking for a job, but that nothing was coming my way. I'm wondering what his game plan was. Was the plan to just sell off all of her crafts until she noticed? You sold them and then you claim she's being unreasonable for being mad about that. I think I've decided this is rage bait. That's the only explanation. But I hope that if this is real, that she leaves this guy. What do you think? Am I the jerk for having a craft night with my boyfriend after my friend bailed? Me and my best friend have known each other for 3 years. About a year ago, she met her boyfriend, and pretty much since then, she will blow me off at every opportunity to spend time with him. If we have plans together, she will ask if her boyfriend can come or turn it into a couples thing by also inviting my boyfriend, or most often, just show up with her boyfriend without telling me he'd be there. It drives me crazy. On the rare occasions she does hang out alone with me, she texts her boyfriend constantly, and if she's not texting about him, she is talking about him. I gave her grace when they first started dating because I'm aware of how much a new relationship changes your priorities. Now they are a year and nothing has changed. They live in the same apartment, work together, and when they are not together, they're on the phone with each other. They pretty much spend 24/7 together. I try to hang out with her once every few weeks or so. A few months ago, I asked if she wanted to have a craft night at my apartment. I would get some wine and an activity for us to do. She said yes. We set a date and time. The day I went to the store and got the wine and craft stuff, I'm headed home and I get a text from her that says she doesn't feel good and is gonna bail. Instead of just sitting alone drinking a bottle of wine, I do the craft I was supposed to do with her with my boyfriend. Boyfriend talks to her boyfriend that night and her boyfriend actually tells us she is fine and they are just watching a movie. A month after that, she goes out of her way to ask me if we can have a craft night since she missed the last one. I say yes, of course. We set a date and time. The day of, I go to the store to buy a bottle of wine and some craft stuff and I head home getting it all set up. 20 minutes before it's crafting time, she texts me and bails. This time, her back just hurts too bad to go. Well, she must not be telling her boyfriend her lies because he tells my boyfriend they are actually going out that night. So me and my boyfriend do a second craft together. A week ago, she asked if I want to do another craft night and I tell her I don't want to get all the stuff just for her to bail on me again. And she says it shouldn't even matter because you do the crafts with your boyfriend, so it's not a waste of money. I tried to explain to her that it's more of a respect thing than anything. And I knew if I didn't want to hang out on the day of, I wouldn't let you go spend money on an activity I had no intention of participating in. She tried to say I was in the wrong for doing all the crafts with my boyfriend instead of just trying to reschedule with her. I then explained that it is almost impossible to do anything with her without bailing to hang with her boyfriend, and now she's mad at me. Am I the jerk? No, you're not a jerk. she's a jerk. Honestly, it's really tough because as girls, we do often fall into this situation where we or our friends will just become obsessed with their boyfriends and then cannot be existed outside of them. And I do think that it is really important in a long-term relationship to have an identity outside of your partner. I think that's healthy. To be able to spend time with friends without being with your partner, like, shows that you have a healthy, independent life. You're less likely to fall into a toxic situation, all that sort of stuff. All that to be said, this person really doesn't want to have a world outside of their boyfriend. So that's a really tricky situation to be in, where you want to be a good friend and be there for them in their moments of good and bad. But she's being a bad friend to you. Continue to be her friend, continue to reach out, but just don't do crafts with her. That's about as low key of plans as you can make, and she bailed. What do you think?